It is 1 o'clock. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. In NFL injury news, the Chiefs officially put wide receiver Rashee Rice on IR after he injured his knee against the Chargers this past Sunday. Giants wide receiver Malik Nabers has been ruled out as he remains in concussion protocol from the concussion he suffered last week against the Cowboys. Colts running back Jonathan Taylor has also been ruled out by head coach Shane Steichen against the Jags on Sunday after he suffered a high ankle sprain last week against the Steelers. Vikings activated the practice window for tight end TJ Hawkinson as he is working to return from the knee injury he suffered late last season. Nashville Soccer Club back in action this Sunday as they travel to New York to take on NYCFC. Coverage starts at 2:30 on the 104.5 The Zone app with Lucas Panzica and Will Bowling on the call. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Happy Friday here on Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045. You want to talk Tennessee Titans. We're going to be joined by Bryan Payton of BDP Recruiting to talk about some college recruiting and what he does. Then we're also going to be joined by Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports to talk all things Tennessee Titans. But if you want to talk to us, ask us anything that you want on this lovely Friday, 615-737-1045, or come join the conversation on the F&M Bank chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. But Blaine, I want to start off because we were talking on the phone on the way in, and you said you watched some Arkansas tape, and you had a lot to say from what you saw on tape about compared to our conversation from yesterday and building upon that. So on tape, like, what did you see from Arkansas, and is this going to be just a little bit tougher than what you initially had thought going in?
Well, I think the point differential. I still think they're gonna. I think they're gonna win by a couple touchdowns.
Yeah.
But this game could go in a different direction. The reason why I say that, I saw Arkansas do the fake punt against A&M, which was a huge play. So then that dawned on me that they have nothing to lose and everything to gain in this game. So there's going to be a lot of, I'm going to give it tomfoolery maybe in this game, because that's how I would portray this if I'm going to this game with this kind of, I think the UT's favored by 13.5 or something like that, some big number. And so, but besides that, I thought their quarterback, the green kid, I think he should transfer from Boise State. He has a lot of talent and upside. And when I say that, I'm talking about not only as a quarterback with his arm, I think he can make all the throws, but he can also run. He's a real good runner. And he's kind of got an equal balance of it. He just hasn't figured it out yet in the SEC. He's late on some of his throws. He doesn't believe what he sees sometimes, kind of like Will Levis, except that he's a sophomore in college. So hate to compare those guys, right? So that's what you see. And so that could be dangerous because, he may figure it out on enough plays to beat you. So, the defense is going to have to play like they've been playing, but he can cause some problems. He really can with his mobility as well as his arm strength. I really like what I saw. I thought he was a potential NFL prospect. Now, their running game and their running back is definitely a pro prospect. And when I say that, I'm talking about immediately. So if they give him a crease, he definitely can take advantage of it. So, and their defense is, I would say, just a little bit about the same as Oklahoma's. I might just give it that. They're the same as Oklahoma, and I think their offense is probably a little bit better than Oklahoma's. So we saw what happened in this game. I know against Oklahoma and Tennessee played them, but there was turnovers involved in there. So no turnovers by Tennessee. I think, they'll win comfortably. But this is not a team that you want to hang around. Now, they have issues with closing games and finishing games because they really should probably be 4-1 or somewhere thereabout. They really had Oklahoma State. I don't know, man, at the end, they just crumbled. So they have issues on how to win in close games. So you don't want this to be the game at home where you got your support on, a night game. They're going to be pumped up. They're in their fan base. So I just think this is a dangerous team. And you're coming off a bye. And everybody go, oh, man, that's great. You know what? I used to hate coming off the bye because it's specifically more so offense than defense. Defense is probably more tackling. offense is about rhythm and timing, because you can get a little sloppy there early on because, you're getting up to speed and playing in a live game. You can practice as hard as you want to. So if they don't have any, careless errors, let's say Tennessee in the beginning of the game, when they get their rhythm and timing back and no missed tackles or slip, anything like that, I think they'll win this game. But don't let Arkansas believe that they can win this game. Do not let it be close at the end. And man, because I think this team can be dangerous. Now, they lose this game and they get hammered. All heck's gonna break loose there in Arkansas. I think it'll be over. And let's not forget Petrino, who's a great play caller, is calling plays, and he kind of handpicked this guy. So the quarterback Green. So it'll be interesting. I just think he's kind of finding his way, but eventually he's going to find his way, and you don't want it to be against Tennessee. And so that front four or, 8, how many ever guys they got to continually harass him and make it difficult for him. If not, man, this guy can take off, and he can win some game. I was thoroughly impressed, especially against A&M. So they got some pieces. They just don't have enough. But if you let them hang around and believe, I think they then will believe that they can win.
I think one of the things I go back to when talking about Arkansas's defense and Oklahoma's defense is probably, to me, Arkansas.
Big time pass rusher too.
Yeah.
What's the guy's name?
Landon
Jackson.
If I believe
Jackson. Yeah, Jackson. Right.
Yeah, right over here. Yeah, Landon Jackson.
Okay.
Is that Oklahoma's defensive line rotation is likely, to me, in my opinion, deeper than Arkansas.
Yes,
and when
is.
you're going up against a offense like University of Tennessee and you don't have that rotation
up-tempo
that can come in, that up-tempo, and you don't have a defensive line rotation, it's kind of like what you saw with the Jets in week 1, where everybody was just getting tired and anybody that you subbed was clearly not as good as your first string. And Oklahoma is a little bit deeper. So that's where, to me, I think you're right. I think, first off, I think you could say two things. I think Arkansas's starting defense is just as good as Oklahoma's starting defense. It's that as the longer the game goes, how conditioned is Arkansas starting defense? Is it conditioned enough to still make an impact in the fourth quarter when, the dam breaks and the floodwaters come through of that UT offense that's just stayed patient, stayed aggressive, even if they're maybe not putting up points? Because at the end of the day, it's a game like this could be won in the fourth quarter just due to exhaustion of the defense, and then Tennessee's offense can put up 30 points in a quarter on you very quick. They got to convert in the red zone too. They had a real hard time against Oklahoma doing that. Lucas Panzica was talking about that today on the Buck Rising show. Was talking about specifically, the Brew McCoy pass where he stiff arms a few dudes and gets into the red zone, and they didn't convert it. This is a team that likes to play time possession football and hold on to the ball. If you don't convert in the red zone a few times, there may be a shot that you don't see the ball back in certain halves and quarters and stuff like that. So it's going to be real interesting to see just how quick, because we both agree we think they're going to win by double-digit points or 2 touchdowns maybe even. Just how quick can they get to that point? Because if they get to it really quick and early, it's over.
Yeah,
if it takes a while, you get kind of you're on pins and needles. You're like, man, when is it really going to break through? But eventually, UT's offense will break through on Arkansas.
Yeah, I think it will. And I think this could be the real coming out party for Nico.
Yeah.
And I really want to see him. I want to see him take over a game. And I think this is the time to do it, especially on a nationally televised game, and he's capable. And this is a game that, people respect, with Arkansas's defense and what they've done in this team. Arkansas is no slouch now, especially on their field. So
they're a good 3-2 team.
Yes, they're solid. They just they're missing a couple pieces, and they got to have this quarterback. He can't be developing. He needs to already be there, and he's not. So he's got some inconsistency to him, but that's okay. He can show some flashes, and if he does enough, which I don't think he will, but it is a much more dangerous game that you want to bury him early and often so it doesn't even get to that. And I think it could potentially be that.
Earlier the better, especially we talk about this game, but you also could look at Kentucky, who stayed around and hung around with a couple of teams, and they beat Ole Miss, barely lost to Georgia. Like sometimes when you hang around with the team, I kind of called it earlier, like playing with your food. When you're a tiger playing with your food, sometimes you can lose it, right? I mean, like if they need to, I think, be a little bit more definitive in how they approach this game and be decisive and be the team that, even if you lose to Georgia and Alabama, that has the best case to make it in. Because if you win a close game instead of a blowout, that could also come back to bite you in the ass later on and down the road.
Yeah, I want to be real close to saying this is going to be a blowout, but I just can't do it. And at the beginning of this game, I think the first quarter and a half, we'll know where this game is going pretty quick.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I'm with you. I know it sounds like maybe I'm not giving hope or credence to University of Tennessee, but make no mistake about it, I expect that they will blow Arkansas out of the water because they're just a superior team in almost every facet, in every position battle, in everything, every matchup, however you want to look at it. They are clearly the better team, from coach to quarterback to offensive line to defensive line to defensive coordinator. It doesn't matter.
Now that they got their two offensive linemen too.
Right.
I mean,
they are the superior team, and when you are the superior team, I expect, when you're going up against an opponent, even a respectable opponent like Arkansas, I expect you to win by a wide margin. And I do expect University of Tennessee to win by a wide margin.
I really want to see them do that. And I think then it will really open up, the country's eyes that this is a legitimate contending type team. And I like I've said before, this is the best team I've seen with Hypo, and the sky's the limit. And I think they're continuing to ascend. So I want to see them put it all together in this game against a quality opponent.
When we come back, we're going to talk Tennessee Titans with Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey guys, this is Blaine for Edge Peptide Therapy. And listen, I've been hearing about peptides and peptide therapy now for a few months and was curious. So I finally went to Edge Peptide Therapy to find out more. And they did a full blood panel that showed where my body had some small deficiencies. And then they came up with a tailor-made plan to address those areas with peptides. And since I've started with my peptide therapy, naturally I have a lot more energy, focus on air, and, I feel a little bit better from my post-injuries from my playing days, let alone when I work out now, I recover quicker, and my joint pain and overinflammation feels a lot better. Seems like it's gone down in the swelling from old and new sports injuries. And recovery peptides help with all of this. So if you're looking for an alternative to surgery, consider talking to Edge first. And this month, Edge is offering $150 off your first peptide package for new clients. So why not get started now? Go to edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com. Or you can just give them a call at 615-724-1878. That's 724-1878.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
We get up early to work hard. We're American made and Tennessee strong. We've been selling Ford trucks for over 40 years. We're Two Rivers Ford. Ford Truck Central.
Happy Friday here on 104.5 The Zone. Blaine and Zach here with you. And we're going to go to Easton Freeze, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. And here, on behalf of A to Z Sports, here to talk Tennessee Titans. But first, I'm going to go to a different kind of topic instead of Tennessee Titans. Last night, the Atlanta Falcons had a thriller in overtime with Kirk Cousins. And I remember a time when 90% of the NFL media and fans were just ragging on the Atlanta Falcons for drafting Michael Penix Jr. And this after a few months after signing Kirk Cousins to a lucrative contract. And now we're in the midst of the offseason 4 weeks in, or the regular season 4 weeks in. Everybody is talking about how, man, you really need to let your young quarterback sit, for a year or two. And it really seems like the way that the Atlanta Falcons did it, despite everybody being, laughing at them, seems like they may have done it right. Not to say Michael Penix still has to do something, but I mean, Easton, don't you think that they took the right approach and the approach now that everybody wants to take?
Yeah, that's the same thing I said too.
I mean, listen, fellas, it's aging well, isn't it? There's no denying that decision is aging well. It was one that I think that the outrage in the moment was spurned mostly by all of us just not seeing it coming. It was so out of left field when they made that decision. And it was for a player that it wasn't like they drafted a quarterback that we were all expecting to go in the top 10 to somebody. Like, they also drafted him really highly. And so all of those things combined with the Kirk Cousins signing, it just seemed like a panic move or a move that didn't really make sense with their team building strategy. But, whether or not they're looking into this and it was just kind of weird management, or they were Nostradamus and had the foresight to be ahead of the curve on this, it's working for him. And Penix is, not the youngest guy. That's another part of it, is like he might be 27, 28 years old by the time that they're ready to roll with him. But if he's good, and this time, however long it is, a year, 2 years, 3 years, he gets to sit and develop, benefits him, which I don't see how it couldn't, then it's a shrewd move. That's nasty business. I approve.
I've always been of the thought that if that's your guy, you go get your guy. If you're convicted about a quarterback, you go get your quarterback. So I kind of stayed away.
Right? The quarterback position. Yeah.
Yeah. I stayed away from really hammering them like most people did, just because I was like, well, honestly, if that's their guy, I have no problem with it.
Well, in fact, the draft value nerds, will tell you. And I defer to the idea that quarterback is just, there's so much surplus value there that always drafting a quarterback in the top 10 may not actually be a terrible idea, just like no matter what. So I get it.
On Thursday, you and Austin Stanley on the A to Z Sports Morning Show had a discussion about why Austin believes there are two main reasons to start Mason Rudolph over Will Levis versus the Colts. Tell the audience, his side of the argument, and did he sway you at all, as you are a staunch healthy Levis no matter what?
He presented an argument that was a lot more cogent than I expected it to be. I gave him his flowers on the show. I said, this is, you haven't fully convinced me, but I came into that show, I came into hearing him out highly skeptical, and I now think that it's not an irrational stance, and it really is just dependent on how healthy Will Levis is, and we're not his doctors, so it's hard to say. But his argument basically was that, and people got mad because they saw the thumbnail and they thought that the argument was it should be Mason from here on out. That wasn't the point, folks. The point he was making was actually pro-Levis. He was saying Mason Rudolph should play in Week 6 against the Colts because giving Will Levis, 19 days instead of 13 days to get that shoulder right and to keep him from not re-aggravating but re-injuring that shoulder. And here's another little aside. We spoke with Dr. Ian Byram, who's a shoulder surgeon over at the Tennessee Bone and Joint Institute this week over at A to Z Sports on our YouTube channel. You can hear that conversation there. But he was talking about how with an AC joint injury, aggravation from throwing too early isn't really a problem. But re-injury is absolutely something that if you fall on that shoulder at all, you can make it a whole lot worse if you come back early. And so Austin's point was just give him more time to get right so that we can see a full, 15 games from Will Levis this season, as opposed to risking it with him in this game against the Colts, which we both acknowledge is a very important game. And the reason why I'm not 100% there with him, Zach, is because I do think fans I've heard from a handful of people this week who are pro letting Levis get right, say, well, you can beat the Colts with Mason Rudolph. I understand that the Colts feel like a very gettable team. I think that they are a very gettable team. you have to realize it's a divisional game, and Blaine will tell you this. Every divisional opponent, no matter how bad, is an active risk to you on Sunday when you go out there. Divisional games are just weird, and you can easily lose to pretty much anybody in your division, and it's a really important game for the Titans. Getting to 1-0 in the divisional standings, getting into that second place in the AFC South, avoiding starting 1-4, that's a really big deal. So I understand the Titans want to play him if he's even close to healthy, which is the reporting we heard this week. I think that's what's going to happen. Is it riskier than giving him more time to rest? Sure. But it's a big game, and I think that if Will Levis is good enough to play and wants to play, he should play.
We're on with Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports.
Well, Easton, I guess everyone saw, I don't know if you saw, I was assuming you saw there on X, the evaluation from NFL quarterback Hall of Famer, my demise, Kurt Warner there of the Rams. Great human being, by the way. On his evaluation on Levis and that interception, what were your thoughts when you saw that, if you did see it?
Yeah, I love that he's done this for a couple of Levis interceptions now, and it has given the hardcore Levis truthers a lot of ammunition. Coming from a Hall of Fame quarterback, it means something. His full breakdown, which is like 5 minutes long, really well done. It makes a lot of sense. I think it makes the interception look a lot less egregious. Zach and I were actually talking about this off air, I believe, yesterday, and I think it really depends, because the crux of that interception was I didn't see the guy, right? We all saw Will Levis coming off the field. It didn't take an expert lip reader to tell that he was telling Brian Callahan, I never saw him. And when you watch that playback, it's natural to say, how could you possibly not see that guy? He's directly where you're throwing the ball. He's a very big human being. He's wearing the other team's colors. How do you not see him? And I'm not trying to dismiss the mistake. It absolutely was a mistake. I think the point that's being made, and I want to ask Will Levis this week, if he'll allow me to go back to last week. I think what he means by I didn't see him was that when I saw him, it was too late. Because as was demonstrated in that video by Kurt Warner, he's looking. The key is on that flat defender, whether or not he follows the route in the flat or whether he goes vertical with Hopkins. He sits down in the flat, and so Levis is looking at the linebacker type, seeing where they're sitting in the zone. All of the process-oriented check marks for him as a passer checked off, and so he mentally got the green light to throw that ball. I'm imagining in that moment it's kind of a bang throwing the ball, realizing the guy's there, seeing him obviously because you're looking at him, but by then it's too late because you've made the decision. That's how I understood it. So it's more excusable than it looked initially. It doesn't mean that you can do that and keep your job in the NFL if you do that regularly. Obviously not. But I do think it's one of those interceptions that if we talked to Brian Callahan, he's a lot less mad about that kind of mistake than some of the other mistakes that Will Levis has made this year.
I know you talked a lot about, Callahan. We've been talking about Will Levis. But what would you do if you were the coach? Would you start Levis?
In terms of playing them? Yeah, I would have a meeting every day this upcoming week with the team doctors, trying to figure out what exactly his injury situation is. But if Will feels good, if he in practice is able to throw without limitations, there's no arm strength concerns, there's no range of motion concerns, there's no power concern, and he says that whatever the pain level is manageable for him, I'm playing him. Yeah, I am. I don't want a Mason Rudolph win or loss to rob us of what this season is about, which is living and dying by Will Levis, giving him every rep possible, and the Titans reaping the rewards of those wins or losses, whether it's high positioning in the postseason or in the offseason rather, or whether it is finding your guy. So if he's healthy, I'm playing him, but it's hard to say, right? Because we're not with him, we're not with the doctors. Right. I don't know what his situation is. We know it's a grade 2 sprain, and that's something that can take a week or 2 or 3. It just depends.
Well, there's a lot of rumors out there, in particular with the wide receivers and trade deadline here a month away or so. But one, yours truly here with the Titans, DeAndre Hopkins. If he was traded, what do you think his value would be? And would you even be considering that if you were the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think we're all referencing the article written by Mary Kay Cabot over at, I think, Cleveland.com is where she writes. But she floated that idea, what was it, yesterday, the day before. I think, that report read to me more like, speculative logic than it was actual reporting on any conversations. Because it makes sense, right? DeAndre Hopkins on an expiring contract. He's an older but savvy, reliable veteran, still capable of, dominating a game when he needs to. Would make a lot of sense on a team trying to go get a ring, and he's a guy that you'd imagine probably wants to go try to get a ring because he doesn't have one. I don't think the Titans are considering trading him. I personally would not, and I think it's pretty foolish to do so. Would you get more, to trade him now than you would just waiting out the season, not re-signing him and letting him walk to free agency? Obviously, yes, because you get nothing if you hang on to him and don't re-sign him. But I think his value to this team, and again, to the fundamental point of this team and this season, finding out what you have in Will Levis, he's a big puzzle piece for that. And he's clearly Levis's favorite target when he's out there on the field in the passing game. I don't think you rob your quarterback, who you're still not giving up on, of that guy in order to get what. I've not done a lot of digging on this because I've not really even considered it. Right? What would it be? A early day 3 pick? I don't know what you could get for DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know what kind of value there is there.
Well, one more thing to that point. Did you think it was odd on the playing time with Burks and Hopkins?
That's what I was about to say. I mean, you don't need DeAndre Hopkins when you have Traylon Burks, so you can trade DeAndre Hopkins.
I just thought it was weird. I mean, I was like, whoa, it's third down. Why is he not out there?
Sure. Man, I've been banging the D-Hop snap count drum for the first 3 weeks of this season. In week 4, it was the biggest disparity between Burks and Hopkins. And it was the lowest total for this. I think it was the lowest total for the season for D-Hop, and that was the one that it didn't really bother me.
Okay.
I think that's just a result of. I mean, they attempted 4 passes in the second half. They completed 1. It was a 5-yard dump off to Tajay Spears. They weren't passing the ball.
Okay.
To win that game. They were in control of the game, right? We talked to Brian Callahan on Tuesday. He said he wasn't afraid to tip his hand with personnel in the second half in terms of run or pass because the Dolphins couldn't stop it either way. So you kind of flex there as a coach. You let your veteran, valuable receiver take the night off a little bit because you don't need him. I don't see a problem with that, to be honest. If it had been a close game where they're passing the ball a lot and that was the snap count, then I'd be pounding the alarm. But it wasn't that way.
Beat writer for A to Z, Easton Freeze.
Overall, Ran Carthon's acquirements in the offseason, since being given unquestioned control of the roster, have looked very nicely. Overall, has he exceeded your own expectations, but also who, as all the requirements and free agency in the draft, has actually exceeded your expectations that you had, heading into this regular season?
I'd say he has slightly exceeded my expectations in terms of his draft success so far. And of course, it's very early. We don't have. It's still early returns on both of his draft classes, but I've been quite pleased. And we knew that he was coming in as a GM who had a lot of draft experience, especially hitting on those guys in later rounds of the draft. And it seems like he's done a really good job of that with Jarvis Brownlee Jr. and Jalen Harrell and those guys that are playing meaningful snaps and kind of ahead of schedule. The free agency stuff, I'm not ready to really give a grade on that. There are some guys that I've been slightly more pleased with than I thought, like Tony Pollard has exceeded my expectations so far. Certain guys like Calvin Ridley certainly have not met my expectations so far. I'm willing to be patient on all of those things throughout the season, but I think that, to your point, Zach, he's done a really impressive job with what he's been given. It's still very early returns on the players he's brought in, but I think it's trending in the right direction. I think you see the vision in terms of team building that he has. He doesn't seem, for better or for worse, he seems like he has direction in the way that he is putting together this franchise, and I appreciate that. So I think fans should be pleased with the GM they have, and especially if you are looking for a beacon of hope in this season that you may think is already lost for the Titans, just look at the young players on the roster, and I think you'll be a lot happier.
What are fans more overrating coming out of the Miami game? The defensive performance or the offensive line performance? Because a lot of people think that the offensive line looked really, really good. But
that's a great question.
I would say that they are better than what they have been, but they're still not NFL average good. And then I think that everybody's looking at this number one defense and thinking that it is actually a number one defense when it's likely closer to like 10.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are overrating both, because ultimately I think people are overrating that Dolphins team. I mean, it was a big win for the Titans, and to get 30 points and all of that, I understand. Be happy about that. I'm not trying to rain on that parade too much, but this is such a listless Dolphins team, right? They didn't offer any resistance, and Tyler Huntley was a disaster. The defense was on their heels the entire game. They were on the field the entire game. I'll say the more overrated thing was the defense. And it's not really a knock on the defense, right? Because you can only play who's in front of you. They did a good job against a listless Dolphins offense, but it's not exactly a performance that you can hang your hat on, because you beat up on a crippled team. That's not really impressive. It's what you're supposed to do. Whereas the offensive line, Miami's defensive front has some real players, and Jalen Phillips, who unfortunately got hurt for the season, was in most of that game. We knew that in that second half, they were kind of tipping their hand. Hey, we're going to run the ball down your throat, and we're going to dare you to stop it. And to the Titans' offensive line's credit, they kept the Dolphins from stopping it a lot of the time. So I'm with you that both are a little overrated. I'm not supremely confident in either based on that performance alone. I don't see how you could be. But I do think the offensive line deserves some credit for what they did.
What are some changes or tweaks that you feel the Tennessee Titans need to make, as far as it could be personnel, it could be play style, it could be play calling, parameters or whatever you think it may be. But what are some changes or tweaks you want to see the Tennessee Titans make coming out of the bye?
Yeah, and I wrote about this last week before the game. I actually felt like they did a pretty good job in just that week 4 sample size of trending in this direction. But 2 big things I wanted the coaches to emphasize and want them to continue to emphasize are the quick passing game and getting creative with the way that they address the right tackle position. I think we talked about this last week when I was on with you guys, but we know that in the NFL, most teams don't really have 2 tackles that are a high enough level to be like island tackles, the kind of guys that you can just put out there and trust to be lockdown guys, bookend franchise tackles. There just aren't that many good tackles in the league. So a lot of teams are making do with just one really reliable tackle, and some teams, like the Titans the past couple of years, have had none. Now the Titans have one in J.C. Latham, and it's very early in his career, but he's a top 10 pick. You got to lean on him, and you have one of the best offensive line coaches in the league. You have a creative offensive mind as the head coach. Find ways to make do with one tackle, find ways to help on that right side, and improve this passing game in terms of time given to the quarterback. I think that's absolutely doable with the pieces they have, and I want to see them do a better job there. The other thing is the quick passing game, and they did more of that in Miami. But the biggest reason here is it presents an easy button for Will Levis to kind of get rolling. Zach, you and I were talking about, because you did the legwork on this, how few of Will Levis's passes so far this year have been out in under 2.5 seconds. If you look at all of the recent Titans quarterbacks going back to like 2017 and all of the Bengals quarterbacks that were there during Brian Callahan's time in Cincinnati, Will Levis is dead last in terms of percentage of passes getting out that quickly. For reference, last year, 2023, Joe Burrow on your chart, the fastest, or the highest rate of those fast passes. So get that quick passing game going, and you have the archetypal guys on this roster for that to work, right? Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, Chigga Okonkwo, Josh Wiley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd. These are the kinds of guys you hit early, you hit quickly, one read pass kind of, you just scheme it up and get the ball into the hand of these athletes who can make things happen after the catch. I think that's an easy way for them to not just succeed offensively, but again, take some of that pressure off of an offensive line that's still trying to get their feet wet. And to their credit, they did some of that in Miami. That's the number one thing I want them to focus on going forward. Find ways to address the right tackle position with creativity and increase the short, quick passing game.
So how much of that is on Will Levis, though? Because, like, going back to that interception, if the primary defender that he's reading is that, I believe, a linebacker, if I'm not mistaken, was that linebacker that drifted upfield just a little bit, left Josh Wiley would then be your primary read in that play, and he chose not to go to Josh Wiley. So some of that feels like it needs to be a Will Levis thing, not necessarily a scheme thing.
And that's fair. That's fair. Levis, when they're giving him the looks to get the ball out quickly, he has to execute. So you're totally right. But they're also giving him plenty of in Miami. It was such a small sample size. But the 3 games before that, there were a lot of play calls that were longer, developing downfield plays. And I understand when you're trailing, you need to mix some of that in. But I think minimizing the times in a game where Will Levis has to navigate a pocket for a significant amount of time, get through a bunch of reads, focus on his blind, taking less, putting less on his plate more often in the game is probably a good thing to do, at least in the immediate, as you're trying to get him on some kind of a track here.
Blaine, you got one more?
Yeah,
last
one more
question?
before we let you go. How does Devontae Sweat, or however you pronounce it,
Devondre Sweat.
Devondre Sweat, look on film through 4 games compared to Big Jeff's 3 games?
Man, he looks good. He looks good. I didn't see the direction you were headed in that in that question. I was getting ready to just sit here and hype up Devondre Sweat, which I love to do. But then you had to make it about Jeff.
Yeah, and I'm not comparing him. I'm not slighting Jeff or Sweat in any way. I just want people to see what this guy is doing out there, and it's pretty impressive.
It's super impressive, and he is exceeding expectations so far. With passing the test with flying colors, and Jeff so far is underperforming expectations, and he's got a very high bar that he set for himself. So far, and they play different. They have different roles a lot of the time, but Devondre Sweat has been the more impactful player so far this season. He's played one more game than Jeffrey has, but in the games they both played, I still felt like it was relatively equivalent. Some of those early games when Sweat was still getting his feet wet, to be fair to Jeff, Jeff was eating a lot of double and triple teams and doing things to help get other teammates free. But Jeff is a superstar, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this because I've talked to Zach about it personally, and I know how he feels about this. You got to hold a guy like Jeffrey Simmons to a high standard, and just doing your job, doing the basic requirements of the play, that's not the bar that you hold a superstar to. Just managing a double team is not the bar you hold a superstar to. You are supposed to, through whatever adversity is thrown at you, be a Chris Jones, be a Quinnen Williams, wreck the game no matter what they throw at you because you are a game wrecker. That's what Jeffrey Simmons has shown he is capable of being before in his career. And this season, he hasn't yet. It's early, and he's missed a game, but it's time for him to step up his game. I'm sure he realizes that. And so far with Devondre Sweat, 10 out of 10, no notes, don't change anything. Just keep doing what you're doing, big fella.
Well, that will do it for Easton Freeze. So appreciate that, Easton, A to Z Sports. You can read all of his stuff over at A2ZSports.com. And, of course, he's on the morning show throughout the week as well. And the post and pregame shows, if I'm not mistaken. So Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports. When we come back, we'll talk about I think the most under-discussed Titans player on this team on defense. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Who that? For many of you who have lived here a long time, you already know Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee area for your European car repair needs now for 24 years. We've all gotten to watch them grow. And I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business take off. Well, we're now proud to announce the 5th location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road, right across the street from Dairy Queen. And Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in the barn of his backyard of a single-wide trailer and now grow to 5 locations repairing thousands of cars each month. And at Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can just visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But always tell Blaze, did you?
Blaine and Zach here on this Friday afternoon, 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door, 615-737-1045. We're opening up the phone lines if you want to talk Tennessee Titans. And, of course, you can talk to us on the F&M Bank chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. Blaine, I talked about, been trying to talk about the defense for like the last 2 days. And a guy that I really want to talk about, a guy that I'm going to surprise some people, that so far is putting together an all-pro kind of year so far on this defense, and that's Amani Hooker. I think Amani Hooker has played exceptional at the safety position. I think there's maybe a handful of safeties that are playing it better than him right now. There's still a long road to go for Amani Hooker this year, but this is the kind of start you want to see from a guy that got paid a few years ago. He's starting to get into a groove in this defense. A guy that's only allowed 23.1% reception percentage on that's 3 catches on 13 targets, 15 yards allowed. I feel like with Anthony Richardson, we're going to see him get stressed a little bit more because Anthony Richardson likes to go deep. But I also think that an Amani Hooker interception is on the way. Like if I were placing a bet, week 6, Amani Hooker interception. But he's putting together, he doesn't have like the splash plays yet, but he's one of those guys that if he continues on his current trajectory, should be in consideration for Pro Bowls and All-Pro this year. Now, he does play for Tennessee Titans, and it's a small market team, so he may not be recognized. But I really liked what I've seen from Amani Hooker, both in the pass game and in the run game on film.
Yeah, well, that's the one reason why I thought they should have paid him, and it's because of his versatility.
Yep.
And that's what the league is about now. It's not just about you being a run support safety. He also can cover as well as he can play free safety. And I really think this is what really has happened for him to take it to this next level. I think it's Diggs on the team that's helped him out.
Oh, for sure.
Because that now frees him up to do all the things that he can do multiply, as far as all his skill sets. He can cover the slot. He can be, the rover. He can come up and run support. The only question about Hooker has always been, can he stay healthy?
Exactly.
That's the only issue. If he could stay healthy, he would be probably always in the conversation as a Pro Bowl player. I really believe that. He came in, he's super sharp. He understands how offenses try to attack secondaries and everything from day one. And I thought that was from the coaching there at Iowa, which was really interesting, and how he understands schemes and system based off when I'm watching him.
Yeah.
Never had a conversation with him, respect his game a lot. So, yeah, if he stays healthy, I think he will always be in that conversation. Maybe missing 1 or 2 games here is not that big a deal, but when you start missing 4 and 5 and 6 games, pretty regularly, that's the only thing to me that's held him back. But Diggs on the roster to me has freed him up because they're trying to keep Diggs in the hole and let him rover and let him just instinctively play, deep middle. That's kind of
and that's really
do his thing.
Let me say something. Quandre Diggs is really probably the sneaky answer to Ran Carthon's best acquisition this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
you think so?
I think he should be in the discussion because I know everybody, loves Latham. Tavondre Sweat's a good one. Calvin Ridley. There's other bigger names that kind of like catch your eyes, right? Snead too. But Quandre Diggs, like you said, he's kind of force multiplier, right? He's a guy that is allowing Amani Hooker to be better. He's a guy that really you haven't seen. Now, listen, they haven't played a lot of great quarterbacks, but he really is a guy. It feels like they've limited the amount of explosives that we have seen compared to years past. And these last few years, you would see a safety get beat deep, or you'd see the corners get beat deep. Now you're seeing, Quandre Diggs and Amani Hooker play in that deep, that too high safety, and they're really excelling in that situation. I just know that Amani Hooker, from my time on Titans Twitter, seeing chats, people pop up in the chats on podcasts, he's been really hated. And I've always thought, fans have really dismissed what Amani Hooker has been his whole career here. Some of it is tied to injury, and sometimes hard to get that out of your head. But I've always thought Amani Hooker has played very well every year that he's been asked, and he's been healthy. And I really feel like this year he needed some love thrown his way. I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about a money hooker, and if you have on your show or podcast, then I just missed it. But I just really think that this is a guy that's having probably out of all the defenders on this team the best and most consistent year so far. I would also put L'Jarius Sneed and Quandre Diggs in that conversation as well.
Yeah. I hadn't seen people say that over the years. I've been saying the total opposite throughout that time.
I'm in the Titans Twitter sewers, so I see a lot of stuff that nobody should have to see.
Yeah, that I don't see. Yeah, right. So he's talking craziness like that. I'm like, well, they must not be watching the same game I'm watching, so I don't even address stuff like that.
Well, when we come back after the break, we'll get to your phone calls. I see the phone board lighting up here, 615-737-1045. We'll continue talking about the Tennessee Titans, and then we'll also next hour talk a little bit of recruiting, because we got a special guest coming on. Blaine, tell the people about our special guest.
Yeah, Bryan Payton. He's a recruiter for his own company, BDP Recruiting, and he's just getting started. He was former associate and a recruiting coordinator for multiple colleges in the Big Ten. So kind of introducing it to the market, and we're going to have him on here at 2:40.
It'll be great. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone. Blaine and Zach, hour number 2, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045. You want to join the discussion? Of course, you can ask your questions or we can read your comments on the F&M Bank chat, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live, wherever you get Zone TV. And we're going to go straight to the phones because Thad wants to talk about the linebackers. Ooh. And Thad, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, fellas, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Right on. I'm driving and I got my earbuds in. First and foremost, I got a 2-part question specifically aimed to Blaine, but I do want to say before I ask my question, I do appliance repair for a living, so for the last 9 years, I've driven all over the state of Tennessee, going to people's houses, fixing their appliances, so I listen to 104.5 every day.
Oh, damn.
And welcome to the family, Zach.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Every show is different, and I appreciate the dynamic of every show. But my question, my kind of 2-part question, like I said, is for Blaine. I miss one game every year, and it's right at my wedding anniversary, and that was this past game against Miami. The middle linebackers, like, I've seen, and what I've watched, like, Murray is the heat-seeking missile, right? And when we picked up, what's his name, Jones?
Ernest Jones.
The 4th.
Yeah, the 4th. Wow. Leading the league in tackles and quarterback pressures and right on. All love to Gibby. My question is kind of like I said, 2-part. Number one, how do the linebackers look? In Blaine's opinion, being a former player, and then also with Murray being quote unquote that heat-seeking missile. Because I saw him, shoot through the line and drop a running back, but the game Ernest Jones, I believe it was his first game in, I saw him blow up center up. Really just, number one, how do they look? And number 2, what do you think that dynamic is between them and how maybe they can help each other? I appreciate it, and I'm going to hang up with this.
That must be psychic because that's exactly the position we were going to be talking about coming out of the break was going to talk about the linebackers and everything. So I'll let you have the floor.
What's been your ratings of those players?
I would have to say,
just last game.
I would have to say that Kenneth Murray has had a few of those Kenneth Murray Los Angeles Chargers plays, but overall, he is a fantastic linebacker too. And I think that this is, I can't think of too many linebacking duos in the NFL right now through the first 4 weeks that have played better. There are a few, but I would say that they are a top 10 unit, and Ernest Jones being that linebacker 1 next to Kenneth Murray is kind of like Quandre Diggs next to Amani Hooker. It's allowed Kenneth Murray more freedom to do what he needs to do. But I think Ernest Jones has looked exceptional. I think that Kenneth Murray has looked above average, is how I would put it.
Man, I think I haven't watched them as closely to evaluate them on that level. But what I can say is, there's times when I watch Murray, and I see him, the Tariq Hill on that 4th down. Did you see him like a bolt of lightning?
Yeah.
Now, the tackle went to somebody else, but he got a hand on him early and made him just keep riding it out to the out of bounds. And I think it was Diggs or someone kind of finished him off. That showed you his athleticism and his speed. It's just wow, that's pretty phenomenal. And then you'll come back and see him maybe in coverage kind of just float or drift. And not as much as in the past with the Chargers. So I think they're getting a lot from him more than the Chargers. I just don't want to see that. When I see that kind of athleticism, I just put him on this higher bar.
Yeah.
And so that's just being real critical. But a phenomenal athlete. I like the signing. I think they understand how to communicate with him and getting the best out of him. And he's in a system that kind of, this attacking style. So then there's not a lot of, reading and reacting. You're the one dictating. So I think that benefits him too. Scheme and systems for certain players are just very important. I think Jones, who's come over, very sharp, quality player. I can't believe they just don't pay linebackers. So, they traded him, got some value out of him. Man, he's a stud as far as when it comes to react in the run game. He's really good at that. Still looking for him to be a little bit better in the passing game if you want to be critical, but nothing, really glaring that stands out that he's not, a good, solid pass defender. I just want to see better, I guess. But man, all in all, I mean, it's hard to say anything really bad about the defense at this point in time when they are ranked where they're ranked.
Right.
So at this point in time, everybody's playing really good to a certain extent when you're talking about the linebackers, but everybody can play better, though. You always got to be that way.
I look at it like this. We're not seeing a lot of crap plays from the linebacker.
No. We ain't seeing
and I think that's why maybe some fans haven't really talked a lot about them, is because it's like sometimes when you're not talking about a player or badly, that means they're playing good.
Right. Exactly.
But they're not playing in some way that jumps off the page. Like Ernest Jones, the play he's talking about, is still burned in my mind with him throwing that Chicago Bears center. Right. That's a play that sticks with you. Not all the other plays that he's making on the field, or the plays that aren't being thrown to his side or ran to his side. Same with Kenneth Murray. Kenneth Murray is kind of playing that Patrick Queen role from Baltimore in last year. And I think Roquan Smith and Ernest Jones, I think that's a good comp right there. And right now, you ask any Pittsburgh fan about Patrick Queen right now in Pittsburgh, they are fed up with him.
What?
He's been terrible this year.
Really?
I mean, they're talking, there's people, I've seen all kinds of analysts talking about, and analysts I respect, not national media people, but analysts I respect that cover the team, that say that he has played terrible. He's been a terrible acquisition. And that may be a linebacker that is system scheme dependent, and he's just not fitting in the system or the scheme. But I will say this, because this is what we said the opposite about Kenneth Murray. Like, I was very critical of the signing of Kenneth Murray.
I mean,
for a couple of million more, you could have got Patrick Queen, was my thought process. And now look at him. It's all about that landing spot, not about the money, but it's about the landing spot.
Well, system.
And now they're switched. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that scheme. And now they've switched.
And the individual coach, Coach Bush there, who knows how to communicate and get the most out of. Go to look at his history, with linebackers, him being a former linebacker himself in the league, by the way. I think, and he's getting the most out of them, but the scheme is helping that too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's limiting amount of mistakes he can make.
Now, we may be singing a different tune if Cedric Gray had stayed healthy and he's starting, or Jack Gibbons is starting. But luckily, they went and were proactive and got Ernest Jones. This also brings me to something I want to talk about, is that Cedric Gray has the possibility of coming off IR.
Oh.
Okay. So they'll evaluate him during the bye week, and they may bring him off, designate him to return. Then he'll have 21 days to officially come off IR. But at this point, a lot of people, if I were you, if I were a Tennessee Titans fan, that's to you, I'm the people. Don't expect much from Cedric Gray, and I think that's okay. Because right now, you want to see Ernest Jones and Kenneth Murray. You want them. They're playing every snap of every defensive play. I think Ernest Jones has only missed 2 since becoming the full-time starter. But you want to see them. Let Cedric Gray come back healthy, get healthy, but also start getting acclimated to how to be a pro in practice, how to read offenses. Because he was struggling in preseason or in off-season stuff, in practices and stuff. So, yes, he's a 4th-round pick, and yes, I know that everybody wants to see Cedric Gray in a 4th-round pick play, but if he's not playing an inordinate amount of snaps, that is fine, because right now you have Ernest Jones and Kenneth Murray playing really good football, and that's what you need from linebacker, because I was so critical, because I thought for sure, especially before they got Ernest Jones, I was like, you just go up the middle on this defense every time, anytime, run or pass, and you're probably going to get big chunk plays. And then they added Quandre Diggs, and then they added Ernest Jones, and that whole narrative has changed. That whole narrative is not the same.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. Maybe not to that extreme, but yeah, I get what you're saying. They were weak up the middle.
Yeah.
And then with adding Sweat, too, by the way, helped up going up the middle. And that's really supposed to be the strength of your team when you're building a team, especially on the defensive side as well as the offensive. But defensively, you got to be strong up the middle, and they definitely improved that. I don't think Cedric Gray, based off him not playing very much, is even in consideration to play.
No, I agree, because there's just fans that expect him, or fans that are excited about his comeback.
Well, that could have been when he got drafted.
Yeah. Well, no, right now. I mean, there's people in here talking about Cedric Gray could be a gem this year, and I'm like, well, I don't think you're going to see Cedric Gray a lot unless he finds a way on special teams. I think he's going to be healthy and active.
Yeah. Now, if someone gets injured, by the way, while he's filling his way through, I think this is a slow playing him as far as getting him out there as a starting unit. When you got Ernest Jones as well as Gibby too at this point in time. So, I would make sure we can get him acclimated not only to the defense, but special team to see if his shoulder and now the nerve damage or whatever was going on there can hold up to snuff with special teams. Then eventually if something happens to another player, then you kind of slowly easing back into the force. But right now, I wouldn't even be shocked if he didn't even dress. But,
I'm with you. I think he's going to be a healthy inactive for a while because you still got Otis Reese, you got Jack Gibbons. I know that doesn't excite.
Some people could say this could be somewhat of a wasted year in his playing time.
Yeah, but I think this is a good opportunity because I think that he's going to, if they give Ernest Jones an extension and Kenneth Murray plays well, I think Cedric Gray's just going to rotate in. I'd rather a fourth round.
3 guys.
Like we talk about quarterbacks, right? And sitting for a year, learning from people. This is a good group for Cedric Gray to sit, learn for a couple of years, and maybe in year 3 we see Cedric Gray in that as he's the Azeez Al-Shaair and the Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw trio of linebackers at San Francisco.
Concur, no doubt.
When we come back, we're going to talk more about the defense. We're also going to talk a little bit more about Will Levis. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone. The NFL is flying by, but you still have time to start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Build a quick same-game parlay for the Sunday matchup between the Ravens and the Bengals. Derrick Henry anytime touchdown, Joe Burrow 2+ touchdowns, and Lamar Jackson over passing yards. Just visit FanDuel.com/Zach. That's FanDuel.com/ZACH to make every moment more this season. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 and over in present Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call Tennessee Redline 1-800-889-9789. It's Blaine and Zach here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 if you want to talk Tennessee Titans. Of course, F&M Bank Chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. And Blaine, I kind of wanted to talk to you I have a few different topics rattling around in my head. And we've been talking about the defense, but what have you thought about L'Jarius Sneed's play? Because I think that he's off to a better start than he was at Kansas City last year. If you go watch the first 4 games Kansas City played last year, he allowed a lot more receptions, a lot more yards. He was he was still good, but they were testing him. They were throwing about 24 passes his way. Now I think it's about 12 or 13 targets have been thrown his way this year through 4 games. So he's on a better pace. He's allowed less as well. And I just have been pleasantly surprised, but I think people get, when they talk about cornerback play, I think people get caught up in whoa, is he pressing at the line? Is he being physical at the line? I mean, how many times is he pushing? And for me, it seems like L'Jarius Sneed's a big student of the game, and he adjusts the way he approaches a wide receiver differently almost every snap. You're getting a different look from L'Jarius Sneed, whether he's going to be on the line and then jump back in zone, or maybe he's going to manhandle you for a little bit. It's like he knows when to back off and when to stay on top of a guy at the perfect time. And, a lot of people make, the what if plays on L'Jarius Sneed in Miami a big deal. If Tua had played, and let me tell you something, go watch Tua and this Miami Dolphins offense since week 15 of last year. They've averaged 15.3 points per game since last year. There is something wrong in the water with the Miami Dolphins offense, and that is not just Skylar Thompson and Tyler Huntley. Yeah. There's been a Tua issue too. So just to say that Tua will definitely make any plays that Tyler Huntley didn't, maybe the chances increase. But to say that they're going to make it 100% really discounts what L'Jarius Sneed has done against Tyreek Hill and Tua in the past, but really what he's doing all season long.
Yeah. No, he's definitely showing that he's worth the money they gave him, and really should be in the conversation, probably, if not top 10, top 5 cornerbacks in the National Football League because of the way and his style of play. And being a shutdown corner, he was talking smack against Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Yeah. Now, let's say this: there is luck involved, and I'm gonna call it the football gods at sometimes when you're playing corner. And so it's easy to say that, if Tua was out there and he was beat on 2 plays and it was just bad throws. Well, what I can say is we don't know that for sure because he may have disrupted their timing, and they may have not been able to get to that spot. And where it was an overthrow or underthrow or, what have you. So at the same time, it didn't change his confidence level going against those opponents. Now, what I can say is also, he likes to play the game within the game. And I can tell that he studies formations and recognizing when it's going downtown most of the time, unless he starts peeking in the backfield, which is what happened on the one they ran by him. I think he thought that something else was going to happen, but he bailed out of there, but he kept looking at the quarterback like he didn't want to believe that they were going to throw on the side. And then next, Tyreek Hill's by him, and then they overthrow him, and Huntley did. So you can tell he understands formation and recognition. He gets physical at times. He understands when he's supposed to peel out of there, and I call it a press bail, which is kind of a big technique in the NFL now, which the only weakness to that is, a quick slant, which you can play off over the top and usually do the bail when it's a longer down and distance. That way you kind of securing yourself on giving up the deep ball. And that's kind of what Zaire Alexander did on that play that he had deep third. And he already had showed he had his hips open. And so he was showing that, now he could turn it into cover 2. He could, run back deep, or he could be in man-to-man or man over the top. So there's a lot of different things. You got to play mind games with these quarterbacks because they're all really good and they're studying film. And you can really get a young quarterback. So, yeah, Sneed's played, he's played really good to this point. I'm not going to give it exceptional, but I would say he's definitely lived up to the contract that he's gotten.
For sure. I also look at it this way, something that I've learned from you, and I think that it's good for fans to hear, is when we first started doing the show, you were talking about the University of Tennessee Chattanooga game and the defense they were deploying, and how the corners, when they were on the hash marks, and basically you only had just a little bit of room. They were playing the outside instead of lining up on the inside and using the sideline as an extra man. Because one of the plays that people like to point out that, well, Tua could have made this throw is one of the sideline throws. And Tua actually did that same exact throw to Tyreek Hill against L'Jarius Sneed in the wild card game on a 4th and 10. Jeez. And Sneed did the same exact. You could put them side by side and they look like the same play. And Tyreek Hill did not make it because L'Jarius Sneed pressed him so much to the sideline that Tua would have to have been pinpoint perfect with not only his accuracy, but his timing, the velocity on the throw, because you are putting the guy up towards the sideline to make a toe touch grab. That is a low probability of making it. And I think people really need to just realize that it may look open, but it ain't open as much as you think it is sometimes.
No doubt about it. And, you learn this when you're playing cornerback because you want to learn all the advantages and understanding angles and perception what the quarterback is throwing. And what you're doing is you're trying to make sure when you're at the line that they run around you and they don't have a free release. Free release means that it's a straight line. You don't want to ever give them the straight line because now the time is always going to be on point. It's like throwing on air or in 7-on-7. So what you want to do is when they outside release, you want to make them, curve out and then squeeze them to the sideline because the sideline is another man. And then how do they be eligible if they do step out of bounds? So you want to just keep squeezing them there, and then it has to be a pinpoint toe touch type catch, which as a DB and corner, you're like, hey, we'll live with that all day long. And so it's a lot harder than people. And it's a lot harder for the DB also to actually do that, especially in this day and age, especially when the receiver is off the line. And also what I was talking about is, you're in cover 3 and they say, oh, okay, you're supposed to be outside leverage is what you were referencing. And if you're close to the sideline in his alignment initially is already close to the sideline, let's be a smart football player and let's get inside.
That's when common sense
comes in.
Takes
common
over. Or football
sense.
IQ.
Yeah, right. And you got to get inside. And you see a lot of guys do it, in college, even at the big programs. So I just say move inside because there is no threat for him to run it out if he's 3 yards from the sideline. And let's reference the Tennessee Vols.
Yeah.
When the receivers line up with those wide freaking splits and they call cover 3 or some form of outside leverage, get inside. What route can he run out there besides a stop route? There's nothing. Guess what? Then you can come up and make the tackle. So don't line up outside or line up head up on them. Get inside. The only throw they can make is an inside throw.
Yep.
So that shows you that some of these coaches are just living off of the guy's talent and not actually teaching them and coaching them how to play the game once you get out there. And I wanted to learn every advantage I could because I wasn't that super duper athlete. I was going to have every advantage that I needed to be successful. And so that's when you start asking questions, in the meetings, and then you got to go out there and play. Sometimes you don't even have to have these conversations if you've already asked them this question, during a training camp or off season and what have you, or when you go through studying yourself and your tendencies throughout the off season. So
Sneed's also a good example real quick is why I don't I do not consider PFF grades worth anything to me because you know what?
It's nothing.
You listen, 46.1 is his coverage grade. 43 is his defensive grade overall. 43. That is not reflective on tape. And this is where, to me, I think the PFF grades get lost in the sauce. And this is why I just don't use them. I'll reference them and I always if I ever reference them, I always put in a caveat for what it's worth, because it's worth nothing to me.
Right.
That is ridiculous. That's someone that doesn't know or understand coverages, no matter what they've been tutored or taught or trained. Unless they're getting trained by a DB coach, former DB or DB coach, I find it really hard to believe that these coverage grades mean anything at this point.
Do they just I don't even understand how they do the grading. So as they put it in the system, if
it's like a 1, a 0, and a -1 for every play.
So if the guy's open, even if they don't throw to him, that's when they're giving him a negative?
I will have to read up on that specifically for corners because they kind of grade everybody a little bit differently, every player position a little bit differently. But if you look at it, he has allowed 5 for 25 for 65 yards, 59.4 passer rating. I mean, is that really match? Do this? To me, the stats, the film, do not match with the grades. Like that's just kind of where I'm at on there. And I got Vandy Man, who
sometimes
I believe
they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. Trust, I've had conflict.
Yeah, and there, I mean, right? I mean, like sometimes you get it right because it's made really easy for you, maybe on the film. But this seems like a misevaluation right there. I got Vandy Man, who I believe is the guy that I met in the Publix in our station in our neighborhood that recognized me, and but he said, "Am I worried about the Vanderbilt Alabama game at all?" And I am not worried at all. So that's where I'm at on that. But Dr. Detroit here wants to talk about some football. So Dr. Detroit, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
I can hardly contain myself, guys. How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing good, Doc.
What? Boy, Blue, how are you?
I'm doing great, man.
I miss you, man. I miss you. I mean, I miss both you guys. Hey, well, what I'm saying is, both the Lions and Titans are off. So guess what I'm doing Sunday?
Fishing.
I'm heading to Talladega, baby.
Oh,
Talladega.
I'm going to go see my champion Ryan Blaney for Team Penske. He normally finishes first or second, so I'm going to go down there and cheer him home and the rest of Team Penske. But, yeah, I mean, why not? Like I said, both my favorite football teams are off this Sunday. But anywho, now, the Titans got Indianapolis when they come back from break.
Yeah.
yes.
Well, I don't know. Indianapolis really is an iffy team, just like everybody else. You can't really judge Jacksonville that much, nor can you. What other teams in the Deccan Conference? I can't even remember. But anyway, neither one of the teams are too impressive. But it was a good win to see both the Lions and Titans win Monday night. Definitely happy about that. But I had a friend of mine that was there in Miami. He went down for some R&R, and he said although the Titans, scored a lot more points in Miami, he still said they played pretty nonchalant. Besides their offense clicking and kicking so many field goals, what else are you expecting from this team from the bye week? And I'll listen off here. Thanks, guys.
I'll let you roll with that.
The question is, what do you expect from the Titans?
Yeah.
After the bye week? Well,
I mean, let's take it in a different direction. Let's take it to the question that I asked Easton. Let's build on it. So I asked Easton what kind of tweaks or changes, whether it's personnel or anything, that you want to see the Titans make. Because for me, I'll give you an example. For me, I want to see some more plays under center. I think they're going into shotgun way too much. I think that under center can help you disguise some stuff. Maybe you can get an extra blocker in that also lets you run some more pass plays and run plays out of the same formation. So I'd like to see that, and I'd like to see more play action. They say that one of the things that he used to describe the identity of this team, Brian Callahan, was they're a play action screen team. Well, they're in the bottom tier of play action passes for the NFL. Like if you're going to be a play action team, be a play action team. Don't just say that you want to be one and not do it.
Screen.
The play action and screen team.
Oh, and
screen.
Oh, man. To really, to me, the only issues so far has been the O-line and quarterback play that you can't deal with.
Yeah.
Like that you got to say, we got to address these. Now, the defense did play well versus Green Bay, but then they came back against the Dolphins. I don't know how good the Dolphins offense is without Tua, but they still put up a good performance. So I say, okay, how can we then help our offensive line, in particular the right side, front side tackle, and then how can we get our quarterback, if he's going to play here coming against Indy, divisional opponent, to be a little more consistent throughout an entire game. if he's your guy, and that's what they're saying, the head coach is saying. So that's probably would be all my objectives. I think you dug a little deeper in the play action pass, and especially looking at the numbers of things. I haven't done that, but I would say that is where I got to get to, and I don't know what I can do besides what I've done now to help him be more efficient in protecting the football. Besides that, he saw Mason Rudolph do it. A win's a win against the Dolphins.
Yeah,
maybe a bottom tier team, but at this point in time during the season, but he did it. So hopefully that will be eye-opening. And will he be our guy, moving forward against the Colts if he is healthy? So that's another part of this question, because it's a divisional game. So they're going to start evaluating themselves as coaches and then as a team, and what's the best route to go.
You know what I also would like to see, and this may be what Benny's about to bring up, so maybe I'll wait for Benny to say it right here. Benny in Lebanon wants to talk about clock management.
Yeah, they definitely haven't been doing good at that.
Benny, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Yeah, guys, I want to know why the head coach can't make 14 seconds, 12 seconds to go on the play clock, hike the ball. Why are we waiting until we get down to 3-4 seconds and giving the defense some kind of advantage?
Mm-hmm.
I agree. That's exactly what I was going to bring up, Benny, and I agree, because I was specifically after people said that after the Week 3 game.
Mm-hmm.
I watched closely on the Week 4, and Mason Rudolph was getting it out a little bit quicker, but it was still getting down to 7 or 8 way too long. And now some of that is they were running the ball. They want to drain the clock as much as possible, right? Now, the week before in Green Bay was not the case.
Right.
But that, I feel like, is a little bit of the case this year. But that's something else I want to see. I don't know if it's the length of the play calls, if it's Will Levis having trouble communicating the plays out loud. I don't know what it is. But whatever that communication system is needs to be really tinkered with and looked at, because they are getting to the line, like you told me, when it gets down to 2-1 on the clock, that makes it real easy for the defense, right?
Yeah, because I'm already in my motion, and I know they can't change the play. So I don't know if the plays are coming in later, they're just breaking the huddle. I haven't watched it closely like that, but there definitely has been times that I go, man, snap the ball. I thought it was going to be a delay of game for no reason. And, they barely get it off. So it hasn't hurt them yet, but at the same time, that does help the defense when you go out there late. And it doesn't help you offensively to identify what they're doing, too, and then for you to make a change. So that's something they need
and
to
some
address.
of that for Mason Rudolph was also changing protections at the line. But
was he a little more efficient, do you think?
Yeah, I don't. It's kind of hard to say when you only have 9 attempts whether he's efficient. But I do think that what he was doing pre-snap was in a stark contrast to what we've seen Will Levis do pre-snap.
Oh.
So I will say that. And I think that is a big advantage that a veteran gives you, that kind of knows how to call out protections and see what he's looking at and handle that stuff at the line. And maybe that's something that Will Levis is still learning. But that is one contrast I did notice, was the pre-snap and him being able to call out protections and kind of shift things around and get people in the right position to make the play succeed.
Yeah. Another thing that I would be looking at is there anywhere I would be working out a lot of different players. I know they worked out some running backs. I would probably be working out receivers. I would be considering trades. I would be looking at off right front side tackle.
Yeah.
These are all the things I would be doing. I would look, trying to plug holes just in case of injury, or if I want to go in a different direction. So I'm sure they're exploring all those different ideas, because that's what this time is, after evaluating their team as well as their tendencies.
Well, when we come back, we'll be talking to Bryan Payton of, and I got him, BDP Recruiting. I want to keep saying BPD Recruiting, but that's probably police department recruiting somewhere. But BDP Recruiting, we'll talk to him about his time at Northwestern, what he's doing with the new recruiting program that he is offering, and also we'll talk a little bit about a couple of Northwestern alumni NFL players that are in the league, specifically one that's on the Tennessee Titans. I'm Zach, he's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, Tennessee, fall is here and is in full swing, and Cool Ray's here to make sure your home is ready for all the fun in the fall. And we've got some sizzling deals that will keep you comfortable and worry-free all season long. So ensure your family stays hydrated and healthy with free water quality testing, because nothing beats a refreshing drink of pure water on a nice fall day. And Cool Ray also offers a $149 main sewer line camera inspection. And right now, they also offer 15% off whole home dehumidifiers, as well as $500 off whole home generators. So let Cool Ray take care of your home so you can focus on making memories. So call us today at 615-709-8699. That's 709-8699. And take advantage of these scorching hot deals. Cool Ray, your trusted partner for a cool and comfortable Tennessee fall. So visit coolray.com. Cool Ray, keeping Tennessee cool, plumbing right, and always lights bright.
Final segment here on Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. And we're going to head to the phones for an interview. And Blaine, I'm going to allow you to introduce our special guest.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Do we have
Yeah.
picture?
We're good.
Okay. I can't see him on here, but
No, we're
my bad. Okay, I thought I could see him here, but naturally we have Bryan Payton on. He's a friend of mine from Indiana, from Fort Wayne, Indiana, born and raised. He played, started running back at IU from 05 to 09. He's worked his way up now in the recruiting business. He was director of recruiting coordinator for Northwestern, eventually there for a long, long time, and now has started his own company called BDP Recruiting. Great to have you on there, Bryan, man. I appreciate you coming on, man, here on 104.5 The Zone with me and Zach.
What's up, guys? I really appreciate you having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, I guess first and foremost, I want to start with this, just kind of go through and kind of throw out some misnomers about recruiting when parents start this process and their kid is starting to get recruited. And, let's just say maybe high school, potentially going into high school and then going that route. And the normal deal of most kids aren't Division I prospects, mostly probably, FCS or in being really good players, by the way, or, Division II players. And that's okay, too, at the same time.
Yeah, you hit it nail right on the head a little bit there with, the different divisions. I think, in all due respect to parents and everything, parents, for the most part, think their son is the best thing since sliced bread. And a lot of times, in some cases, they may be. But I think the biggest thing that I find is that if I don't go FBS, then I'm not successful. And that's never the case. Yeah. The truth is, most kids will not play FBS football. Most are going to play somewhere FCS, Division II, Division III, or NAIA. And a big saying that I've always had, and I've heard a coach in the past say this before, it's 100% true. Wherever you are is the big time. I don't care whether it's Division III. I don't care if you're at Michigan, Ohio State, or Tennessee State, or Vanderbilt. Wherever you go is the big time. Okay. And I think it's important for parents and families and kids to understand that if you don't get a big time, quote unquote, big time scholarship to Tennessee or something like that, but you're going to a Division II school or Division III school, that's okay. It doesn't mean that your experience is over. So I think that's the biggest thing, and then the second thing I would say is that a scholarship offer means that you can always take it. And we both know that is not true. So those two things are the biggest things that I hear and see that I try to be upfront with families about.
I guess one more question before I pass it over to Zach is, what are some of the key attributes you look for a potential player to work under your service, or how do you prioritize their talent with their character and the fit with the school and the university?
That's a great question, Blaine. I think one of the biggest things I look for one, I want to look for those who are going to be realistic about their own situations, or even if they haven't been up to that point, be open to it. Okay. And also because for me, those are recruits and families that I feel like I can help, because I can't sit here and promise every single kid that they're going to play at a certain level or play at the school that they dream of or this and that. What I promise them is that I'm going to take what they find important and what they need and what they value as a family, take that with an honest evaluation based off the film, based off their recruiting situation, their development and the projection that I can see with my expert opinion, and help them find the best place for them. And that's the thing that's most important to me and that I focus on. So they need to have realistic expectations, but also be open to all the possibilities and also understand and trust me with the experience that I've had.
Yeah, Bryan, tell our listeners a little bit more about BDP Recruiting and when you first, thought about starting it.
Yeah. So, BDP Recruiting, what it is in a nutshell is, it's a recruiting advisory company that where I help high school, not just high school, actually, but high school, JUCO, and transfer recruits help them find the best college and university for them to go play football. And I probably had the first thought about doing this really probably pre-pandemic, to be honest with you, probably 2019, about 5 years ago, where I first kind of thought about, what I've always loved recruiting. That's been my number one thing. I enjoyed recruiting kids to Northwestern and to Allegheny College and to Otterbein University and Trine University, some of the other places that I've been at, in Concord University Division II in West Virginia. I've enjoyed recruiting kids to those schools. But what I found is what gives me the most joy is helping recruits and their families through the process. I won't say any names, but there's been so many recruits and families that I've helped through the process that did not go to Northwestern or go to those schools. They made it clear that Northwestern wasn't going to be on their final list, or maybe we made it clear that we weren't going to continue recruiting them. But that didn't stop me helping them in the process and guiding them and helping them where to go. And the amount of recruits and families and high school coaches that came to me during my time at Northwestern, especially, whether it be phone call or DM or message, whatever, that really did not really understand the recruiting process and needed help was alarming. And I just felt like there's an avenue for me in the way I do things, and that way I can help these kids and help these families and help high school coaches as well.
You were the director of recruiting at Northwestern from 2015, 2024, and the Tennessee Titans happened to draft a guy you recruited, Peter Skoronski. And can you tell fans that right now they're a little impatient about Peter Skoronski? He's in a new system. He's a guard. But what can you tell people about Peter Skoronski, the worker, the athlete, the reason why you recruited him and what he was able to do at Northwestern to maybe give them some hope that things will turn around?
Peter Skoronski, oh man. So out of high school, he was a highly recruited kid. He wasn't somebody that was a diamond in the rough, I would say. But the reason why he was drafted by the Titans and the reason why he got to where he was and why he was a starter as a true freshman wasn't because of this amount of stars that he had or that he was highly recruited. He puts in the work. And he is somebody more than anybody that, any of the former coaches can tell you, he is somebody that is a student of the game. And he's going to try to take himself every minute detail and try to get better at it. He always knows that he's not a finished product. He would tell you that straight up anytime. Okay. And he anticipates kind of the weaknesses and things that he may have, regardless of whether we see them or not. But he's somebody that is a true worker. You're going to have to kick him out. They got to kick him out the weight room. He's somebody that's going to be in the film room. He's that type of guy. So yes, it's the league. Everybody's good. Everybody's great. He's going against, the best of the best. And he knows that. But you got to be patient with him because he's somebody that's going to work. And I promise you, he's not going to take anything for granted. He for sure didn't at Northwestern when easily he probably could have if he wanted to. He coming in as the highest rated player one of the highest rated players we've ever had. He could have skated by and, hey, I'm going to be a draft pick anyway, this and that. They look at me, this and that. No, the dude came in and worked. And that's who he is. And I'm proud to say that I just had played a hand in his process and scouting him and help recruit him and get him to Northwestern and help catapult him to the Tennessee Titans, where I know he is going to be great. Just give him time.
Brian, we have to let you go. But before we let you go, tell people where they can follow you on Twitter and how they can get in touch with BDP Recruiting.
Absolutely. So you can, my email is info@bdprecruiting.com. My Twitter profile is simply @BDPRecruiting. You can find me there. If you feel like you need help in the recruiting process, you or somebody feel free to jump in my DMs or shoot me an email. I promise to get back to you and do everything I can for you to get you to the best place that fits you.
Well, we appreciate Bryan. That's Bryan Payton of BDP Recruiting, bdprecruiting.com, where you go to his website there. That will do it for us. 3HL is up next. This has been Blaine and Zach. This has been a perfect Friday, perfect ending to the week.
Okay.
And in the meantime.
And in between time.
Peace.